Welcome to Amazon Legends, where we have real stories about making it big on Amazon. Our guests are CEOs of large companies and entrepreneurs who became power sellers, also providers specializing in helping sellers, aggregators that acquire sellers, and former Amazonians will give us an insight from behind the scenes. Here is your host, Nick Urison.
Welcome to another episode of Amazon Legends. I'm happy to have my next guest today because he's been on the show before, and he's going to laugh when I remind him the story that he told me. He's someone who's made his childhood dream a reality by emigrating to the United States, and he followed his move by becoming a success with almost a decade on Amazon. So today, he's in charge of growth of Amazon marketplaces of a major hair care manufacturer, and also he's the founder of PAS agency. And when he's not working, his hobby is always makes me laugh because I'm also very much into it. He's a history buff about war strategies. So with that, everybody, meet my guest. Welcome back to the show, Ruben Alikhanyan. Hi, Ruben.
Hey, Nick, great to meet you. Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for an introduction, and thank you for welcoming back. We had a great conversation. I'm glad to be back and discuss another topic with you.
Oh, yes, definitely. You worked with what always I appreciated during the recording and also afterwards, and I told people that you picked sellers who were struggling and then worked with them. There's a lot of effort around working with sellers, but at the end of the day, they don't have the money. And most sellers are under $1 million a year. And even a very large percentage of that are under even less than 100,000. So working with small sellers is always admirable. So what we're going to talk about today is one of the, as we record this, end of February 24, something that's going on that's extremely busy and at the same time delicate, and that is transitioning from 1P to 3P. So going from being a vendor to Amazon to becoming a seller on Amazon. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, a lot of the discussion will center around that transition, but it applies to every seller in terms of how to be successful. So with that, let's jump right in. So give us your approach in taking somebody who wants to become a seller, going from being a vendor.
Yeah, and I think it's a very actual topic to discuss right now because as we see with years, this transition from 1P, 3P is actually accelerates. As a matter of fact, one of the data points that I read, it gets more and more that on 2023, it's more than 65% of the sales of Amazon came from third-party sellers, which is actually up almost 12% compared to 2020. So there's a very, very steady increase, which means there's a steady transition or, actually growth, and also the transition of the 1P traditional model that Amazon started and become Amazon to the 3P. And for those who kind of, trying to figure out 3P and 1P, 1P is a model where you sell your own goods to Amazon. Amazon sells it as a retail model. And then 3P is when you sell to consumer directly. So yeah, we do see that. And it seems that just going to escalate. And our approach starts with understanding what the business model was for that company before and what are the decisions that are leading them to make that change. Because it's not in contradictory, it's not an easy, just to flip a switch transition when it comes to that. It carries in preparation, it has in due diligence portions of it that needs to be maintained. So understanding what the relationship was of that vendor to the Amazon.com and why they want to transition, that's the start for us to go. Yes, I think that's the first and radical approach for that.
Yeah, I mean, they say that a good call starts with asking questions, right? So it's always about trying to find out what is the purpose. So 1P being a first party, 3P being a third party. So who's the second party, by the way?
That's an interesting question that I didn't ask. I don't know. That's something for me to look for. Why
You
we
know, we
jump on
really,
the, yeah, I think the second party is the fulfillment because the goods go there and you deliver to the to the customer. Maybe could be because there is the fulfillment centers in between before the
yeah.
consumer. So I think that
So
could be.
so I had a former Amazonian on the show. This is quite a while ago now, over a year ago. And anybody who wants to look her up, her name is Danny May. And when I was talking to her, I used to ask people a question: if you could change one Amazon policy, what would that be? And her answer was, I would change the policy I helped write. And I said, which policy was that? She said, well, this is not a very publicly known policy, but Amazon, in the service agreement that every seller signs, Amazon mandates every third party seller to stop selling a product if Amazon wants to become a first party seller for that. So my point is, Amazon was aggressive in pursuing being a vendor to many, many manufacturers, but that's no longer the case. So that stopped being their policy about 2 years ago. So since then, they've done a lot of things, but really, short of Amazon purging a bunch of vendors,
Vendor seller, yes. Yeah.
also vendors are now finding that it is not in their best interest to be selling to Amazon because Amazon is not placing POs unless there is a demand. And if there is a demand, you can sell it directly, control the price, and still have Amazon do the fulfillment. So this is a no-brainer decision, but if you started as a first party, then obviously switching to third party is a bit of a challenge. So let's say that let's pretend that I am that first party vendor, and I say to you, I just want to control price. That's my main goal, but I have a lot of inventory at Amazon. I sell about 20 something SKUs, excluding their variations. And I don't know anything about selling on Amazon. So my priority is, first and foremost, I don't want to jeopardize my relationship with Amazon. I don't want to lose inventory, and I don't want to lose sales, and I want to go third party. So you take it from there. So how do we get started?
So that's common. So to get that started, one of the important things is to start communicating with your account managers, and then vendor or 1P sellers do have those account managers, especially when you have an inventory sitting and there could be some unpaid balances. So what do you want to do? This is more like when you have to leave your job and it's doing the right way, giving the 2 weeks notice. So you have to approach it that way, contacting, notifying your account manager that you have made that decision to gradually moving. So understanding what are the requirements are going to be with that transition to make sure that the Amazon is aware of. So there is no, it's like a vengeance from Amazon, if you may, because they can and they will. They may cut your POs. There are many things that they can take against you, maybe legally or not. I don't know. I cannot speak on that part. But the most important thing is to take that time, speak to them, and explain to them what the situation is, and you're going out. Once that portion is settled and everybody is notified, another important thing that I see a lot of sellers just just forget to take care is make sure that you zero all the inventories, because on the Vendor Central you have a line of inventory SKUs that are available for Amazon to place POs. So making sure that you level those inventory to zero and then marking them unfulfillable for future POs, that will make the system see that those are, because the last thing you want canceling POs, right? Let's say you even communicate, and Amazon 1P is notorious for miscommunication. So let's say you even communicated that you do no longer want to support Vendor Central or 1P business, but you forgot to cut off your inventory, marking them discontinued. You're going to get a PO. And this is kind of another layer of conversation or maybe some sort of negotiations that just going to hurt your transition. So those will be the first, the important start. So moving from that, once you have established a relationship that you're reliving 1P and all your inventory is marked that you're no longer going to be fulfilling, is the gradual transformation to the third party. Obviously, you mentioned there's an inventory there, so the Amazon will have the right to do whatever they want with that inventory, even up to the discounting. So you need to be prepared for that kind of a scenario, that there could be some, and you like I said, the price is an important subject, but this is something that it quite likely happen while you're kind of going through this divorce portion. So obviously the next step is going to be establishing your Amazon Seller Central if you have not done it yet. Going through the procedure of registering business and formally establishing and verifying information that is going to be standard procedure. Once you have settled that, that's what we will take fully over by creating your listings. And also important portion is the brand registry. Because if you're a vendor central with brand registry access, usually the vendor central takes over the brand registry ASINs and they're over dominating. You can have that brand registered through your standard brand registry procedure for your seller central or you're being a third party, but the Amazon vendor central will dominate. So that is also another transition through the brand registry to making sure all the rights from brand registry is transferred to the seller central. Because like I said, we've seen it many times with create let's say A+ content or make changes or additions, and guess what? They're not reflecting because the listings have been created through the vendor central. And quite frankly, that is one of the biggest challenges that we've been going through with some of the vendors that we have done that transition. So making sure you communicate with Amazon about let's say the divorce, that everything is proper, making sure their inventories are marked that you're not going to be fulfilling there anymore. They're not going to taking any POs, and establishing your seller central connection through your brand registry connection and completing that transition. That is the core action that needs to be taken to, let's say, call it finishing the phase one, because from that portion, what starts the regular selling processes.
Yeah. Okay. So now this is a delicate thing. So first of all, you gave the example, you want to leave a job, and what's the right way to do it? Of course, you give your notice period, you give enough time, especially if you have so many responsibilities. So same deal. So you are as a vendor to Amazon, and when you decide to leave, first of all, a job usually has that notice period. And you say, okay, I'm leaving on April 1st. And then you leave on April 1st, you are done. You say goodbyes, you're done. But going from vendor central to seller central, that's not like that, is it?
Yeah.
You cannot. So my first question to you about that is, should 1P vendors to Amazon aim for this transition project to be a deadline-driven project, or should they plan it and then handle it over an extended period of time? How should that be handled?
My suggestion will be to have an extended and gradual transition and not with a cutoff date. And I would really suggest the brands who are looking into it, gradual stoppage of the SKUs that I talked about. You have, let's say, 20 SKUs, so you're not marking them unfulfillable right away, because here's the fact that you may even get orders on those that are marked, but gradually moving out SKUs that you've been fulfilling, essentially cutting off the POs. And then to have that due diligence time, as mentioned, to just get off at one point without any specific due date. This is the date I'm cutting off, because it's not going to work that way. Like that, there are co-ops to pay, there are chargebacks, there are Amazon accounting that needs to be settled in both ends, Amazon. So you want to do that as gradually as possible without stressing everything, because also there's the factors of your listing losing ranking. And we see that quite often as well. When you, let's say, stop an inventory or you move very quickly from vendor central, and Amazon may, de-rank you on the back end, you lose a BSR, best sellers rank. So you do not want to do that, radically like that. and have it more smooth transition. And also, I guess it's needless to say, but I'll mention it, you would want to have your inventory already in Amazon fulfillment centers before anything happens. Because the last thing you want, the POs to be cut off, inventory be up, and you do not have a new one there to cater to your customers, especially for the products that are top sellers. So yeah, that's how I would approach it.
Okay, so that brings another question, and this is another delicate one. So Amazon, being a vendor to Amazon, comes with a contract. So usually those contracts have terms. And when the terms are up, they need to be renegotiated. And of course, for a vendor that Amazon is happy with, they don't want to let go, right? So how do you handle a contract that needs to be renewed, but at the same time, you know that you want to go 3P and you want to get that started?
Yeah.
How do you go about negotiating and then getting the other side going?
Yeah, well, it is ultimately the brand owner's decision, right? But to be frank, you're not really going to get too much of a lever when you're negotiating with Amazon, regardless how much they like you or do not like. I mean, unless you're going to be Coca-Cola or something. Like we're talking about, being an average seller. So you're not going to. I were successful to negotiate some co-ops being down, and then company would stay longer. Some chargebacks being removed, and company stayed longer with that. But it comes an ultimate decision with a brand owner. They decided to leave. There's not kind of a negotiation going to help, because if you brought up the pricing issue, the pricing issues has deeper issues than it just the pricing. So if the Amazon is in core of those issues, it's going to be hard fixing that with Amazon, almost impossible. So regardless how that negotiation goes, staying on Amazon is not going to be an option. So when the contract expires, the brand owner makes it clear, the brand makes it clear that the departure is inevitable, and you just make that transition. Like I said again, but making sure that the communication is right and every technical processes are completed.
Yeah. And can you be a seller as well as a vendor to Amazon at the same time?
I've seen what they call a hybrid models, and quite frankly, there was a time that there was a policy related to have both, that you couldn't. And I've seen also accounts being shut down on the other side, mostly on a 3P. Obviously, you rarely get the 1P shut down. I do not know a successful model with that, but there are some strategies. I'll give you an example. When you are a 3P, you have more chances to make a product successful, increase the sales velocity, because you have a lot more control. You can advertise it more better. I mean, all those things you can do 1P, but obviously we all know, I guess, by this point, that a 3P gives you a lot more control. And then once you create that product successful, which kind of gives you more confidence that Amazon will cut larger POs, you can transition that into 1P model and let the Amazon take over. When in contrast, when you're going to launch a product with 1P, it might as well not be successful, and it's a core product, core transition for your brand strategy, and it's not picking up, and then you kind of end up having nothing when the plan was that to, let's say, substitute the previous model or launch a brand new successful model, and the 1P kind of let you down with that. So building it through the 3P and then adding the async to the 1P and start receiving POs could be an option, and I've had an experience with that, but they're not that common, and I don't really know that many successful brands that use both. But yeah, it's quite possible.
I mean, when I say both, I'm not suggesting as an ongoing model, but
yeah,
technically, during that transition, you're gonna be a seller as well as vendor,
yes,
right?
Yes, you definitely you can do that. And that kind of goes back into making sure having an inventory. There's going to be a period where you both go into selling the same product. Amazon is selling your own product, and you're a 3P selling yourself as well.
So for the purposes of staging this transition as a project, so what I'm hearing from you is, first and foremost, before you do anything, you communicate to Amazon that this is your intention and that you will be going third party. And then immediately before you doing anything else, then create your Seller Central account if you don't have one, and then create your brand registry account if you don't have one, and then make sure this is the big deal, because I've seen people, two different people creating each one separately
Yes.
with their email addresses, and then they are not linked together. Then you just become a reseller, right?
Yes.
So make sure you use the same email address to create both the Seller Central account and the brand registry account.
Yes.
That means that automatically they'll be linked, and you will
Yes.
become the brand owner and the administrator. And then at that point, you have the basic infrastructure ready for you to start doing things on Seller Central. And then the next thing is the planning of what is going to move. And again, without setting a deadline, you take all your SKUs, turn off the resupply capability of Amazon on the ones that you decide to migrate, and plan, I would say, start from the ones that are not selling heavily. So don't start with your top SKUs. Leave those. Get a little bit of experience with the slow moving ones, and then move the inventory from Amazon, or let Amazon sell out, and then you move the inventory, and then have FBA. One thing you said that's extremely important, I cannot stress this myself: do not ever allow the listing to run out of inventory. Right? Because then your rank, your keyword ranks, your BSR, everything will take a hit. It's like running an ad campaign without really having the what do you call inventory. So it will shut off, and then it will take you 2 months to get back to where you were. So, and the final thing I'm gonna say is, tell me what you think. Get your advertising account up and running, ready to go with the campaigns, because whatever you're taking on, the whole purpose of taking over the listings and becoming a 3P is so that you have better control and you can drive, right? So start driving right from the get-go and get your advertising. The reason why I say that is, this is my main point for sellers in general. I asked the question, what is the greatest value of your advertising account in your Seller Central? They say sales. No, it's the history. So the history, and you will start with almost no history, even if you had a Seller Central account, because it's been dead for a while. So therefore, make sure that you kickstart your advertising operation so that it starts to build up some history and then bring some maturity. So what do you think, Ruben? Does this kind of outline how to approach?
Yes, I think it's much deeper in terms of this whole transition portion, because first of all, I think, those are the technical portions we discussed, but business-wise, you need to know a lot more in what are you going to do after the transition. For example, just like, do you have an in-house team that are going to take over the 3P right away? Because when you're a 1P, you don't really worry much. You can have a one person and just cutting the POs and making the accounting is right. When you go into 3P, it's a lot more. So you have to be prepared for that. It's an in-house team. It's a company like us you hire to manage. Are you learning all by yourself to do it? So have that in order. And there is a lot of information out there that can create a misconception into, hey, change it from 1P, 3P is going to be good for you. Even if because of the pricing is, something that you're feeling bad about. Like I said, it's not a flip a switch situation. So you need to have those plan in place. And once you do that, once you have it, obviously someone who, with the knowledge of what was going on with the product, what was the rankings of the product, because you need to capture that right after the 1P sells off the inventory. Now you're the owner. And again, there's going to be tanking of the ranks pretty much very quick. So you need to be able to pick it up, knowing that if let's say 1P never run an advertising, because you can actually run an advertising on 1P, you need to be able to do your due diligence and understanding what your keywords were, what your rankings were, what your targeting strategy is going to be. and be able to capitalize on that as quickly as possible. So your sales velocity will not go down ultimately without impacting your ranking. So again, with all the things that you've outlined, they're all great. They're right structures of as far as the steps goes. But I guess before even you start all of that, you need to have the understanding that the 3P is not 1P. You're becoming a seller, and selling on Amazon, as we all know right now, it's not that easy. There's a lot more involved than just supplying the Amazon with an inventory.
Yeah, I mean, this is key. So I'm going to ask you a direct question. Would you advise any Amazon vendor to transition or to undertake this transition from 1P to 3P on their own?
On their own. Again, if they do not have the resources of making that, I could be supporting that after understanding what is it. But it's not something that an unprepared, untrained someone will be able to easily do. That's what it is. Again, like if I be sitting with a brand or with a consultation and I hear them out completely and I understand, I get hired for a consulting and I understand that they're fully prepared, I may see like, this is something that you're ready to do, or these are the areas you need to increasing more, giving more attention before you do that. But if you do not have that experience and you've been solely on a 1P supply, I think hiring someone will be beneficial, or at least having someone to consult you on that side will be beneficial before tackling that, because there could be some consequences that could cost you money.
Yeah, I mean, you are answering the question in a very kind way, but I mean, first of all, it's a silly question. It's almost a rhetorical question. And my answer to that question, if anybody asks me, I say don't. Yeah. Because I don't care what their resources are. First of all, nobody would be equipped to run a seller central operation and be a 1P in the first place, right? So that means that they don't have the knowledge and the experience of an experienced team to understand the moving parts. So my answer would be no. But let's from a realistic standpoint, if a 1P vendor wanted to do this on their own, what are some things that they would have to learn? And if they say, look, we don't want to hire anybody, we've got people, we're going to designate somebody to take this project on, what kind of learning is needed here?
Yeah, a lot. So to start with, you need to know the catalog, right? You need to know how to establish a catalog, because like I said, there are certainly going to be catalog challenges, which will only be fixed if you know how to submit flat files. And if you don't know how to submit a flat files, or let's say you learn, you also need to know how to do troubleshooting, how to communicate with the seller support, and have a gigantic patience, which a lot of sellers don't, because they 1P. Like that's why they choose to go to 1P, because it's a lot more easier. So catalog troubleshooting is a #1 priority, because that's what you're going to start with. Moving next, obviously the advertising is going to be one of the crucial parts there to learn. And depending how complex your brand is, how many SKUs you have, that's as complicated as more knowledge will require for the management. And that's just the two main portion. The other thing is something that we are most passionate about, is the more holistic marketing approach. We treat the brands not just an advertising account, but more of a strategic marketing and holistic approach. How are we going to grow this brand, which includes understanding all the deals types you have, on the promotional types that could be utilized. So that adds just another layer of knowledge that you need to know how to set up things. And with my 10+ years of experience, certain things feels, it's so easy for me to do, and I just surprised that but when you approaching someone who never done that, even the most simplistic things going to look complicated until you get used to it. So yeah, here you go. You have a catalog, you have a communication with Amazon, the case management, you have general account management tasks, account health, you have advertising on the top of it. So you have a marketing promotions approach, Amazon post, customer engagement So there are plenty of things that you need to learn, if not all at once, but at least gradually, to be able to successfully, because Amazon right now, and again, it's not the Amazon of a yesterday, not even, it constantly evolves, and you need to be on the top of it. Right now, there's a big push towards within the advertising. So advertising, there's a one thing comes up that there's a completely new. So you need to learn that and adapt to that. So yeah, you need to eventually learn it all. But if I give you a sequence to learn, catalog will be the one most important, advertising will be second, and holistic marketing approach that'll include deals and promotions to support is going to be equally crucial.
Well, there is one more thing, which to me is also, frankly, I say that this is the most important thing, and that's your replenishment of what's selling.
Inventory logistics. Here you go. You completely bailed out on that. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Inventory logistics. How your workflow is, where to where. Oh, here you go. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, this, because what's happening is, before you've got your, if you are the manufacturer here in the US, you have your production plan in order to produce X number of pieces. If you are manufacturing offshore and bringing it in, then you have your lead time based on the needs. How are the needs determined? They are determined based on the POs that Amazon gives you. So
exactly,
that's easy. Well, now is a whole different ballgame, right? So now, first of all, you've got to have enough inventory here in the home base, not at Amazon, in your warehouse. And most manufacturing facilities don't really have a warehouse. So that means you're going to need to get a 3PL that will store the individual. And by the way, if you decide to sell packs and bundles that need assembling, that's all a 3PL activity. Now you need to know how many pieces are at 3PL. And then you need to call off FBA shipments to be sent for X number of pieces to Amazon. So you need to be able to track real time how many pieces are at Amazon facility, how many at 3PL, and track your sales velocity. How many orders are you getting per SKU on daily basis? So therefore, constantly be on top of how many pieces should I send to Amazon? How many pieces would the 3PL last for? And then how many on all? This is not something that you're doing. And if anything goes wrong here, then you're dead in the water as far as your listing performance. And like I said, the sales stop, your rank takes a nosedive, then it takes you 2 months to get back up there. So that's why it's important to stay on top of the inventory, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you got also, if you're an FBM, you got dealing with customers. It is taking ownership of a business and becoming a seller. That's the bottom line. You're no longer selling it to Amazon. You're responsible for every bit of the aspect of a business from, before that, if you're responsible for manufacturing, now you're not only manufacturing, it's, all the aspects of the workflow from the manufacturing all the way to the hands of the consumers. So, making sure the voice of customer is up, what people are saying about your products, their errors. So yes, it's definitely has its many benefits to be a direct seller, but it is first of all different, and also a deep understanding. What are you going to get when you make that transition? That's what should drive the decision-making process, not singled out emotional, the pricing. It is a deep conversation that will require consulting, that will require help to make the transition, that will require future support. Let's say a retailer, wholesaler that's been already busy with other channels, managing their wholesale, their retail structures. That's where our remote e-commerce comes as a support to be able to handle everything outside of their traditional channels.
I have a question for my listeners. Are you experiencing cash flow challenges with your Amazon business? Well, silly question. Who is not, right? So let me introduce you to Viably, a unique solution tailored for Amazon sellers and e-commerce enterprises. By connecting your Seller Central or Shopify account, you can promptly access funding along with a variety of financial tools, all for a flat fee. It's as simple as that. And for my listeners, they are offering an extra $1,500 in funding for eligible applications. Start your quick and easy application today at runviably.com/legends. And that's runviably.com/legends. Yeah, there's a couple more things that I would put on the table for anybody who's transitioning, and then tell me what you think. First of all, the sole reason why you're doing this is because you want to get behind your growth yourself rather than leave it to Amazon. So control, price control, growth control, everything. So growth on Amazon comes from numbers. So there is a lot of, especially recently in the last 6 months, the amount of reports that Amazon made available that ordinarily you have nothing to do with, starting from all your brand analytics. You have search query performance, you have catalog performance, you have top sellers, you have product opportunity explorer. These are all cutting edge analytics that Amazon provides, and not to mention understanding financial. So what I do is I actually split the entire Amazon operation into 3 different areas, and all the reporting, all the actions, teams, whatever, whoever, it's always around those 3. One is financial. Are we making money? And where is the money going? All things, that means unit economics, that means overall operational, where the money is being spent, where can we save the money that we're spending right now, and things like that. A lot of it comes down to storage, of course, your FBA. Like, for example, you could easily fall into a higher tier in the FBA fee. You can tweak your pricing and things like that. So one bucket is financial. The other bucket is the funnel. It's what is the performance of the funnel? What are the search terms? What are the click-through rates? What is your impression share? You know, all these the analytics that tell you exactly what's going on. And the third one is advertising. How is your advertising performing? Because that's the one that's making generating the money for you or driving it. And so what is how much are you paying? What is the cost of each click? What kind of conversion are you getting on? So finance, funnel, and advertising. Those are the 3 things that all of which are driven by the analytics. So one part is of the work, in addition to everything we discussed, is taking control of that numbers oriented activities. The second one is, of course, the metrics that now Amazon will expect you to satisfy as a seller, starting from your seller rating to each product rating, all the way up to your storage, your IPI score, right? So inventory performance index, because the lower that score, the higher you pay for storage, and you can get in trouble. So understanding the Amazon performance metrics from sellers, and then actually having certain team members take ownership of those metrics. Who's going to be responsible for what? So what do you think here, Ruben? Is that, or is that, am I making too much out of it?
No, I don't think you do. I think, every bit of a mention here in your statement is absolutely accurate, and being on the top of those metrics are crucial to your business. I hope so that there are no more sellers, because it's been a very common who didn't know their number, even making thousands of sales per day, tens and thousands of, but not knowing what the bottom line, what they're making is as important as, I don't know, the whole business process is. So being able to get your financials in order, and that can include, just combined with the marketing spend as well, what your customer acquisition is essentially the core of the business. That is what keeps the boat floating. The other side of it is of course, your metrics as far as the performance goes. Because if your, for example, the IPI is down, you're not getting enough room to have enough inventory, not counting the higher fees you're going to pay, which is going to, in its case, affect your bottom line, and then goes along with the finance portion. So theirs are not only important, they're all interconnected one to another. If you want to have a successful business in Amazon, those are the things that you need to consider, and those are the things that you need to be on the top of it. And as clear you can identify them, see them, and then make the right calls, as successful you are going to be. Just being in front of it, one step ahead. So I'm going to agree with that. Absolutely. Those are crucial aspects.
Yeah, I mean, because being a seller myself, getting in trouble with seller support, I should say seller performance team, is not something you want to do. They are extremely sensitive. Now, the other thing that I will say is I actually heard this from one of my guests. She said that when you are a wholesaler, and that's what you are as a vendor to Amazon, your entire focus as a culture, as a company culture, is shifting as many units as possible. That's what it is. But when you become a seller on Amazon, that can no longer be your culture. It has to be about the experience that the customer has, or the experience that you provide for the customer to have with your product before buying it and after they bought it, right?
Absolutely.
So, and that comes from content, it comes from package inserts, it comes from how quickly you respond to their emails, and there's a bunch of other things. So I thought that was extremely profound in terms of how you actually put it. To share with us some of the examples of such mindset. How does it translate into the operation?
Yes, such a great point. In short, you need to become brand centric, and that goes along with the overall consumer experience, because your end result is the consumer experience with your brand, which you don't really get when you are a 1P, right? You just hand up your inventory in Amazon. Your brand does exist. It's not like it's not there. Your brand can be seen, but that brand experience is all Amazon. So when you make that transition, now that brand experience is all on you, and that is another big reason when customers, or when brands make that change, to be able to control that. For example, to be able to control the overall experience in a granular level, receiving a negative review. Amazon just going to leave that negative review when a brand owner is going to reach out and offer solutions to get that back. So that's all goes back into the customer experience. So a transition with that and making brand centric comes with it can come from various places. One you mentioned is the your creative, how your catalog is going to be set up, the storefront changes. And right now, various aspects of the advertising offer such a creative approach to it that all can lead to what the customer experience is going to look like at the end. Your video advertising, your sponsored brand advertising, your storefront experience. And moving that same conversation, we also can talk about the part of a marketing effort that you're going to drive those sales. You talked about the flow, and then how you're going to acquire that customer and how that experience is going to look like. So having that strategic approach after you make that transition is also a key of importance. We don't really get to that much because our conversation can last for hours and hours, but you have to make that decision of that from that point on. This is a more brand-centric approach, and you own it from end to end. From the time you market it to the potential consumer, from the point that they made the purchase, and then the after effect, it's all controlled by you. So top-notch experience is what the customer is going to expect, and you need to be prepared for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is so true. So, Ruben, before we finish recording this episode, we have to touch on something very important, and that's the taking ownership of the listings. So when you are a vendor, Amazon creates the listing, And anytime a listing needs a change, they are the ones who have the authority to make that change. But when you become a seller, so that's the model that you are operating under as a vendor. But let's imagine that you started as a seller, you got brand registry, you then have full control over creating an ASIN from scratch. And then anytime you want to make updates to title, bullets, pictures, add new pictures, whatever, all it takes is a flat file or even by hand, and then your update will go through within 15 minutes tops. But going from 1P to 3P, that's a complex situation. So walk us through, how does one take full ownership of their listings once they become 3P, even though they got created by Amazon, but now they want to bring it to the same place where they submit the flat file and the updates go through. So walk us through the steps of how to achieve that.
Yes, I wish I could say there was this one easy way to do it and things will get fixed, and unfortunately that's not the case. Even when you do things properly, you could still see challenges when it comes to making an updates to your listings. But the proper way to do it is, again, obviously to take the full ownership of the brand and make that transition from the brand registry vendor central to the brand registry seller central. And that is going to be communication, again, back and forth with the support of the within the brand registry customer support team. And that is the core essence of guaranteeing that you have that full ownership of making any changes, as it would be with the standard with any standard seller situation. So when you have the brand registry, when you're 1P, you can still register a brand and you're part of a brand registry program there. So you have to get that transition that, like I discussed earlier, within your account manager, and then make that. Once you have that, that's the part that guarantees your changes, so you can submit the same flat files or do the backend changes. But again, unfortunately, even with that, you still might run into issues of things not getting updated, which will require communication with the seller support team. In short, you have to make sure that your brand registry is completed from 1P to 3P and it's assigned to your brand. And you must do that, by the way, from your seller central first as well. Your brand registry support, those are both of them are crucial. And once they're done, you will be eligible to make an updates, but you might still contact support for some additional changes.
Yeah. Well, something you said earlier, and when we started the recording, you have to have a gigantic patience to deal with seller support, because that is usually, especially in America, customer is always the most valuable, and therefore customer service is key. And people demand quality and good customer service, and you can say, I want to speak to your supervisor. None of those things, right? None of those things. When you become a seller, you're going to have to deal with seller support. You're going to have to deal with account health specialists. It's a different team, and they take care of policy violations and things like that. And then also, hopefully you never have to deal with them, but that's just, at some point you may have to, and that's the seller performance team, where there is like completely hands off. You are in
Supreme
trouble.
Court.
I mean, it's like the freaking Second World War. You are in the in the concentration camp. You have no rights, no nothing. I mean, that's how it is, unfortunately. And you have to follow the procedure and do. So you have to have that incredible mindset that, okay, follow, do not react, do not lose your.
Remember, there's another human being sitting on the other side reading your messages. So you exploding on them is not going to help your case. And there is a human factor. If you're sitting here and receiving 500 emails today with different requests, and one of the person, there could be case rejection. Just so you have to have that patient, treat them as another human being sitting on the other side, no matter how frustrating the cases are going to be. And that will probably give you a better outcome. But yeah, patience is the key. And also, there's not a portion of it, a lot of time just overlooked. The way you contact the support and the way you put your request as important as the problem itself. Because as countless time we see, we can put the same ticket to get something resolved, and someone unexperienced can do the same. We'll get it done through right away, because there's a lot of scripted tasks solving problems within the Amazon. If you're not within the script, you may very well get the rejection. So approaching the right way is also important. And yeah, yes, please have patience with that. That's the key.
Definitely. Well, this, as you put it earlier, this can go on hours, but we are coming to the end of the show. So this is where, I mean, I know your story, but I have to say, this story that you told me, I want you to tell it to us again, because it stuck with me as, you know, how your early life experience played out, and also how it translated into your business model. And it's the story of what you did with shoes, old shoes. So tell me that story. Your father taught you. I love that story. So tell us that.
Refurbishing them and putting them back. Yeah, that's been part. It's funny enough that story had such a profound effect on me. Right now, I'm a collector of shoes. So,
really? You are worse than a woman, so you've become as bad as a woman. You're into shoes.
Yes, so yeah, that's true. It had an effect. It's something that taught definitely efficiency and probably open-mindedness. So yeah, it's a great experience with that.
What was it? So tell us. So you were, I mean, obviously this was all done because of lack of enough money. Tell us the story. I mean, don't be shy. It's a great story.
Yes, but wearing your dead shoe to the basketball game and fitting it with the socks to for the feet to fit. That's the story. Yeah, but like, you know, you growing up, you usually get a couple of pair of shoes for a year, and sneakers are not the thing that you usually get as a kid as a shoe that you need, because you need a winter shoe and you need a summer shoe and you need a shoe. So the sneakers are usually get something as deprioritized. So wearing a dead shoe and stuffing the shoe toe so the feet can go in was the innovative ways of passing down the shoe through the generations.
So you were putting on multiple socks in order to be able to fit into the shoes. But this is to obviously use those shoes, somebody else's shoes,
Absolutely,
in place of sneakers.
yes.
So, but you playing sports, and I mean, didn't your feet get sweaty and hot?
Listen, this is something that I always, you know, I have son that is 11 years old, and look at them and said, hey, back then there was the desire of doing something as a kid was so much bigger compared to what we could afford, that regardless the situation, it was the fun thing to do, because you didn't have that many distractions as growing up as a kid. So if the sport and desire to play the sport and passion was there, you would just do anything to do that. And that was the key. Nobody would care about, you know, your feet hurting or that the feet doesn't fit the shoe and so on. What was important that you were doing something that, you know, was the biggest thing. It was the soccer was playing it, and sports have changed as we grow, but that was the thing. You wouldn't worry about that. That was not something of a concern. Absolutely.
So I have a question for you. So you mentioned you had an 11-year-old son.
Yes.
How many pairs of sneakers does he have?
Yeah. But I remind him, I said, you know, like, and he's something that is very appreciative, of course, and I try to keep it that way. Yeah, he has a lot more, and so has I. So I guess.
So you know, that is the challenge. You know, that is the challenge, because I mean, you are a different version of the same kind of generation, but after the Second World War, you know, when this country went to war and fought the Second World War and defeated the enemy and came back home, it was a whole different world. So those who came back, they struggled to make a living. And they went to college with the GI Bill and everything else. But really, there was a new era, so to speak, where people would get jobs and then create these families, but with one goal, that never allow their kids to suffer like they did. Give them everything.
Opportunity,
So,
give them.
Well, what happened to those kids today? They are the kids who have things easily. They don't know the meaning of hard work. They have a phone in their hand. And so, I mean, that's what happened. Unfortunately, as a parent, of course, you want to do that, but then there is the consequences. And I value your experience growing up. It's you can't pay enough money for that kind of education.
There is definitely experiences. The difference of the experience of the kids today compared, when I grew up. But I was born in 80s, so it'd been a transition. But I think every age and every experience has something to teach. So as long as you're open mind to get those lessons from life, regardless, you have a 10 pair of shoes today, and you have an iPhone, and I didn't have. I think that's what's the important. I think that's lessons, life lessons of what is it. It's much more important than maybe the personal struggle that I've gone through. Admittedly, that can build a character. I think I've heard it a lot. I can say it for myself. But with that said, also, I think there's a lot to learn from the kids today and what they see and how they experience things.
Well, listen, they've got enough challenges coming their way with 33.
I believe so, yeah.
Then with so good luck to them. We won't be around to solve it.
I believe so, yeah.
So, Ruben, give us your contact information. How can people reach you?
Well, anybody who will be interested, with a remote e-commerce department, we manage, we grow, we scale businesses on Amazon, outside of the Amazon. Also, we've been growing in Walmart, supporting our brands. Our motto speaks for itself. We are an actual remote e-commerce department, some team that you would hire for your own company to help you to grow. To reach me, by LinkedIn contacts will be there, Ruben Alikhanyan. My personal email will be ruben.a@pasagency.com. That is Professional Amazon Services, for those who wonder what PAS stands for. So ruben.a@pasagency.com. We do offer free audits and consultations, so please hit me up. Be happy to talk.
Yeah, great. I'm sure people will. And you've been doing this long enough, so I'm sure you'll hear from people. Thank you, Ruben. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Before I go, a quick reminder to say goodbye to your cash flow problems and claim your extra $1,500 when you qualify for $25,000 or more in funding. Go to www.runviably.com/legends and start your application today. Thank you, and this brings us to the end of another episode, and I'll see you on the next one.
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the episode, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too.